Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at the 5th Doctor and TARDIS set from the Visitation, which is exclusive to B&M stores in the UK. A massive thank you to Character Options for sending over these samples to review, and let's begin as ever by taking a look at the packaging. So the set comes packaged in the now familiar window box packaging with the TARDIS on the side and the current logo, and with the gold foil limited edition sticker on the front. The sides and the back of the box give us a better look at the figure and the TARDIS inside, and also gives us a synopsis about the Visitation and a little bit of behind the scenes about the serial. As with all of these TARDIS Doctor sets, the inside features a display diorama backdrop, which is the woods where the TARDIS lands in the Visitation, and you can see just in the background the pteroleptal android is lurking dressed as the Grim Reaper, just like in the story, which as ever is a really great touch. I always love these backdrops and they make for a very fun display backdrop for your figures. So out of the box, both figure and TARDIS look great. The TARDIS is very similar to the one that we saw last year with the 5th Doctor. This time, however, it's in a slightly lighter blue, the wash is slightly less heavy, and there are none of the big mud splats going up the bottom, which is great because this now means that we have a sort of proper clean TARDIS for the 5th Doctor. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. The 5th Doctor, on the other hand, is another re-release, this time of a very rare figure for a lot of people. This figure was first released in the San Diego Comic-Con set with the Master, and became very sought after because, like all of those figures, they were quite tricky to get hold of once they'd sold out on pre-orders. However, there have been some updates to the figure, so let's begin by just talking about that. So, like I said, it's a re-release with slight deco tweaks for the better, I should add. They have made the figure more accurate, and hopefully these will carry across to any other future 5th Doctors from season 19 to 20. The head sculpt is very neat and crisp, with the Panama hat attached on top. All of the paint apps are very neat and crisp around the eyes and the mouth and the eyebrows. Some lovely painting on the hair with that dark brown and then the lighter blonde flecks over the top. It really makes the sculpt pop. And then the Panama hat is a simple cream colour with the red band painted along the outside. Sadly, still no white polka dots or anything like that, but I can imagine that at this scale that would be very tricky to do. Moving down to the body, this is where we get some of the differences. So looking at the coat, this time round the coat has been cast in this beige plastic, as has his arms, similar to what I mentioned with the 4th Doctor and the Terror of the Zygon set. This I think works really well because that means there's no rub, and it just means that it just feels crisp and sharp. Obviously when you paint things, details get lost. So I'm really glad that they've done this. I think it works very well. And as you can see, all of the paint apps for the piping around the lapels and the cuffs and the pockets are all very neat and crisp. The only other difference with the coat is that the buttons on the front haven't been painted this time round. He also has his stick of celery, and that again is being very well painted in that white and green, and that's just glued on. Next, let's move on to the shirt. This is where we have our first difference. So on the surface it seems pretty similar. You've got the red question marks, you've got the red around the inside of the collar, and you've got the red on the underside of the collar as well. This time, however, we do not have the red button. It's been painted white, and I'm really glad about that because they painted it red from the very first 5th Doctor, and they kept that going. And I think the reason why they did that is because the thread that holds that button in is red, so they painted it red. Personally, I think it works much better being white because the button is white. You know, you can barely see the thread in a lot of pictures. So really glad about that. Then the next big change comes with the jumper. The jumper has also been improved. Again, it's in this lovely white. The sculpt on this is very nice indeed. You can see all of the texture of the knitted jumper, and especially around the bottom there, very nice. And then if you look at the colours on the jumper, so for the first time ever, I think, we have the brown V across the top for the V-neck pattern. I think on other ones it's been sort of more of a reddish colour. You've got the thicker red line, and then you've got the black thick line as well. And I think on some other ones that's been varying colours. Sometimes it's been blue, I think, possibly on the Time Crash set. But this time it looks perfect. They've got the colours really spot on. I'm very glad that they've done that here. And like I said, hopefully that'll be something that carries on to future figures. Then moving down to the trousers, just like the coat, the legs have been cast in this cream colour, and then the patterns have been painted on. The patterns on the trousers have been obviously simplified from what we see on screen, but it works well. There's a few missing patches here and there, which seems to be an issue with all of the Fifth Doctors, particularly on the inside leg. I'm not sure why that happens, but it is something that does seem to reoccur. And then if we look down at his shoes, these have just been painted white, and there's no mud or dirt on them like they have done in the past. This time he's got a clean pair of shoes on. So the Fifth Doctor has all of the standard articulation. He has swivel joint at the head, allowing it to turn side to side. I'm not going to push it all the way because a common complaint with the Fifth Doctor figures is that the red paint that is on the inside of his shirt collar would rub against his neck, and in some cases would even scratch the paint off the neck. So I don't like pushing it too hard, but I've got to be honest, on this one it seems slightly better, although there is a bit of scratching going on there at the back. So something to be aware of. Swivel joints at the shoulders, swivel joints at the biceps and at the elbows, and of course at the wrists. And then moving down, we've got swivel joints at the waist, which is a bit tricky because of the coat. And you've got swivel joints at the hips. It's that T-crotch joint, allowing it to move forwards, back, out to the sides. A swivel joint at the thighs, and a swivel joint at the knee. So it can pivot back and forth. This, I think, is a nice update from the original figure, and like I said, it was a very hard figure to get, so if you missed out on this figure, you're probably going to be really pleased to see him in this set, so that's really great, and like I said, I'm very pleased with the new updates to the paint decos. Then we come to the TARDIS. So, like I said earlier, this is kind of a revamp of the one that we saw last year. Slightly different colour, slightly less mud and dirt and muck on it, but what I will say is this being a season 19 TARDIS, it actually means that the sculpt that we have here is probably makes this the most accurate TARDIS in the line, because in season 19 we always have that large block on top of the sloped roof. So actually this works really well. There's a few minor discretions in terms of like lock and door handle placement, but obviously that would require new tooling, but overall the main silhouette of it works very well indeed. Like I said, the colour of the TARDIS is a slightly lighter blue than the previous version, the Androzani version, and the windows on the Androzani version were slightly more yellowed. This time they're slightly cleaner. They've still got the dirty wash, and you can see here it's quite heavy in the crevices around the window frames. Particularly on the back, you can even see there's actual bubbles of paint left. And I did put this out on Twitter because when I got this, you know, I thought it looked great, but my only criticism would be that I would have preferred it to be a slightly lighter blue and maybe slightly less heavy on the wash. I know it's less than what we had before, but I think it could have been slightly cleaner. However, saying that, I have seen people posting their pictures online and their ones looked less dirty and slightly more blue. Now, I wasn't sure what that was all about, and turns out it could just be the lighting in my house and maybe my eyes just aren't what they used to be. Because when I took this outside, these pictures are taken out in the back garden, you can see the blue looks quite different. So I think a lot of it is just down to a trick of the light. And I think it just seems to be a bit of a luck of the draw what you pick up. Because my one seems like it's got quite a sheen, quite a plasticky, waxy sheen to it from that weathering. Whereas I've seen other people's, theirs seems quite matte. And like I said, seems more blue. So you'll just have to see what's on offer when you find one at your B&M. Detail-wise, it's really well done. The wash does help bring out the sculpt, all of the lumps and bumps and the wood grain effect. Not that these TARDISes ever had a wood grain effect. But one thing I will say, be careful of, these doors when you get the TARDISes are always sealed, and they're sealed with sellotape. If you peel off the sellotape, be careful of peeling off some of the wash, because that's what happened here. I've known a few people say that peeling that tape off can take some of the paint with it, so be very careful. Hopefully that's something character can rectify in the future, but just something to be aware of. The front door sign plaque has the correct wording. It does change from story to story that season, and actually I think in the Visitation it also has the handle on that door as well, which they could have done. That would be my only takeaway from this, is they could have added the handle one just to make it slightly different to the previous Androzani box as well. That would have been cool. Otherwise everything else is just the flat blue, the handle, you've got the gold for the lock. The text on the roof signage is very accurate in that lighter blue as well, so that works very well. And like I said, you've got this dirty wash around the windows because they are pretty mucky in this series, And again, that really helps bring out the pebbled effect in the lower panes. And then on top, that's all finished off with the Fresnel lens on the large block. So like I said, this makes it the most accurate of the TARDISes using this sculpt. And just like the previous TARDISes, the doors open inwards like so. This one locks, this one is loose, and there's the catch at the top. So you pull that one in, and then there's the small switch at the bottom, and that releases the door so that they both close. It's also very nice to see this version of the TARDIS without the mud splatters, because that felt very story specific. But with this one, you've got a TARDIS that really fulfills your Fifth Doctor needs. And I guess at a push, you could always use it for the Sixth Doctor, although his TARDIS is slightly more greyer than this. But overall, I'm really pleased with the way this TARDIS looks. I know a few people weren't quite so sure because they thought it was too similar to the Androzani set, and I can see what they're saying, but I think with the cleaner paint job, particularly if you've missed out on that Fifth Doctor, and because I know that original Androzani TARDIS was also quite tricky to get for a lot of people, this I think is a really great set for those that missed out there. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all again very soon for another action figure review. Bye-bye!